always fun for the countdown. I don't know why, but we get real psyched up during the
We're
countdown.
like a
We sure
team
get
in the
this.
locker room or something, like about to go out and get the championship.
Yep, my little mini pep rally. Pep
That's right. That's
rally.
right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Ah, all
What's up,
right. Let
Scott?
me kind of click over to another button here because we always like to start with our welcome. And with our welcome, we are going to say that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. And we do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind.
That's
So
right.
again, welcome to everybody that's here on the call with us today or on the podcast with us. I'm going to move my camera around. I'm having some computer trouble while we're here. So,
And wow,
all
and
right.
real quick, shout out to my Instagram. Shout out to anyone who's there live on Instagram. I'm going live on my Instagram profile today too. So we'll see what happens. See how long that happens. But we're talking all things cannabis. So shout out to you, IG world, and shout out to you, YouTube and Facebook world and Twitter.
Awesome. Welcome. All right. And last but not least in our little welcome segment, I just want to say that please remember to support our sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at scnormal.org/pages/our-sponsors.
That's exciting.
And
Shout out to sponsors.
shout out to sponsors. Absolutely. All righty. And Vaughn, if you will lead us off and tell us what you're planning for us today. Before you do that, I will just kind of let everybody know I will be scooting out early today. I have, I got scheduled for work when I was not supposed to be. So I'm going to scoot out, go to work.
That's all right because that's why teamwork makes the dream work. Shout out to the rest of our board as well because that's how Michael Jordan said that talent wins games, but intelligence and teamwork wins championships. So that's how we rock over here.
All
Today,
right. Great
you
quote.
get you a little motivated for your job today.
Yeah.
So today's going to be fun. Every week is fun with cannabis conversations. We like to have fun. We're going to talk a little bit news. You know, I'm always happy about talking about what's going on in the world of cannabis. I try to keep the stories local in South Carolina, but surprisingly enough, there's not a whole lot of headlines that come out of South Carolina. But when there isn't, I make sure that I tap into things that are still relevant to us, especially since we do not have, like a legalized market here in terms of marijuana. So we'll talk a little bit about that news. I'm going to dive a little bit into what Vermont's got going on because I think it's pretty interesting. And today we're going to do something a little bit different too. After we kind of rummage through the news, we're going to actually dive into that gubernatorial debate that occurred last week between Joe Cunningham and Henry McMaster. And I'm going to do a little reaction video in real time with you guys specifically about the portion about marijuana so that you can hear both of these candidates' perspectives. But I encourage you to watch the whole thing. I still have to get through the whole thing, but I'll just say a spoiler alert. The very next question after the marijuana question is sure to be some entertainment. It was about same-sex marriage. That's all I have to say. Teaser there. So that's what we got going on for today. And real quick, before we even start, I do want to make sure I say you can still vote early. So please make sure that you take advantage of that. Scott went and he voted early because he'll be working the polls. And so just real quick, Scott, just in case we got some new viewers, let them know.
All right, yeah, it's very easy. Most communities will have my community, they're libraries, but sometimes some are churches where the early voting stations are set up. There was traffic when I went there, but there was no waiting. Basically, the person that was leaving the check-in table right before me as I'm walking through the door, so I got to walk right up, and there was about, I want to say a half a dozen poll managers there waiting to greet people. And then the outside booth did have about 3 or 4 cars lined up to it, which when I've worked the polls, we very rarely get the outdoor voting. I think I've had about two or three in the couple of years that I've been doing it, in the few years I've been doing it. But real easy. You walk in, check in. You do need ID here in the state of South Carolina, so show your driver's license or your state issued ID or your concealed carry permit or your passport or your photo voter registration if you happen to have one of those. Um, They'll give you your ballot. You walk over the ballot marking machine, which is an automated device that will print out all your selections. I was a little uncomfortable hitting some of the buttons. You had to be kind of precise. But watch what you're
Right.
doing. If for some reason you hit it wrong, you can uncheck it and go back to the right one before you finally finish and print out your printed ballot. I will remind everybody there are actual paper ballots, so although they're electronically counted, it's printed onto a paper ballot. Read and double check your ballot before you walk over to the scanner, and then again they are scanned for counting, and then the paper ballot is stored for safety and security. So
Perfection. Thank you, Scott.
you are quite welcome. So yeah, if you get a chance to get out, if you're not going to be available next Tuesday, get out early and please vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please take advantage of early voting. Absolutely clutch, especially if you have some weird times in terms of like trying to get off from your job and things of that nature. This could be a great way to kind of further strategize that. So let's get into the news. Real quick, shout out to all of our viewers right now. Check in with us in the chat. We love to talk back. So make sure that you say what's up. Tell us where you're checking in from. If you're from South Carolina or wherever else in this blue round planet, just let us know where you're checking in from. And we're going to get on with the get on. Here we go. So,
All right, before you get too far, I'm going to say goodbye for a while. I'm going to
uh,
scoot on out of here. I do apologize. I will try and log on if I can from work before it ends. Probably not joining in the studio here as much as just watching on YouTube. I will comment and say hello.
that's
But
exciting.
that is it for me, folks. Have yourselves a great night. Bye
All
bye
right,
now.
Scott. Peace out. Then it's us, good people. Then there was one. Are you ready for this? Because I'm certainly excited about this. All right. Peace out, Scott. I still see him in our little green room for StreamYard. All right. So
Actually,
check.
I'm going to pop back
Oh
on
my
here real
God.
quick. I have to ask you a question. Can you see the control buttons to end the broadcast later?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't have to be sitting here to end it or
yes, absolutely. I will be able to end this broadcast, which is great. So first things first, let's get right into this thing. All right. So the first headline that I have for you today is something the direction that we're going to take with these news articles are going to be pretty kind of surrounding the industry. It is within the cannabis industry, right? But it's also ancillary things within the industry. Like, and you'll see this trend because I think that these things are important. Like when we talk about legalization, it is not just about can I light up in public, can I smoke at home freely. Like there are other aspects to legalization than just that. And it's important for us to at least have some kind of bird's eye view, like a high level thinking about what that looks like. And of course, we'll have to dig into details, but it's important for us to understand what legalization really means and what it affects. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was this headline right here. This comes from BuzzFeed. Health risks linked to working in the cannabis industry are largely unknown, but a 27-year-old's death reveals the potential dangers. So, the speed read on this right here is that there was oh, okay. I got some check-ins. What's up? What's up? Ina, Mike, what's good? All right, let me pop this little article into the chat for y'all. Okay, so the speed read on this is that unfortunately someone lost their life with working within a facility, a True Leaf facility, um, where this young lady she uh, died from occupational asthma. And they officially said occupational asthma due to exposure to ground cannabis. And that's within the cultivation facility. So, the high level viewpoint of this particular article is the dangers that can come when working with cannabis and why it's very important that when we are in a state of legalization or when we are having these kinds of facilities, it is super important for us to look at other industries that may have a similar work around or workflow, maybe like hops or something like beer hops, things of that nature, right? We have to make sure that people are safe when they're in these environments. It's important that workers who are working with cannabis are able to have access to things that are going to properly shield them from things like cannabis dust or things of that nature, ground cannabis. And that's because of that's just your body interacting with this, right? Like that's the way that in order to keep the longevity within this thing, we have to make sure that we are accounting and mitigating the risk that people have, right? So that's something that this article touches on. There were a couple of investigations, OSHA inspection. There's a different way to say that, but I'm going to say OSHA inspection revealed that employees in the flower production area of the Trulieve facility were not provided effective information and training on the hazards involved in the cannabis production and grinding process. Later on in this article, you'll see that a manager or a representative from Trulieve said N95 masks were available. This particular person, she had complained about the fact of not feeling well, and her stepfather also uh, testifies or gives a quote saying that she had already been complaining about breathing. Um, like it's like the problem with breathing and not having like a respirator. She wanted to have a respirator and put in that request, and that it didn't come. So it's something that is we have to think about these things, right? This is certainly not a case of just like actually I see a comment in here of what something I was just about to say. Oh, what's up, Joey? Also, let me get Ina checked in. Got to give a little shout out to Ina. Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Mike was up in there. Appreciate you. Joey, what up? What up? And then Mike is actually saying what I was just about to say. It's always cannabis with something else that's the problem. It's never really the cannabis. Right. And that's the thing about this article, right? This article isn't being brought up to say cannabis is the culprit here. But what I am bringing this article up to say is that we cannot forget about the other factors that come into play. Like I find that sometimes in the industry, just from what I see, like sometimes it feels like some of the basics get looked over. Like some of the basics. If you're working in a facility where there's going to be ground cannabis, if you're working in a facility that is more prone to have dust in the air, occupational asthma is a thing. And it's not just a thing in the cannabis industry, it's a thing across construction is another big one. Like I said earlier about hops, anything where people are interacting with a lot of like dust in the air, like occupational asthma across the board is a issue. So with cannabis, when we talk about legalization, this is another part of this running theme tonight is that legalization is more than just lighten up, put one in the air. It's more than that. It's about us also thinking through all of the ancillary things that cannabis legalization can bring. It can bring jobs. It can bring, just like in this particular instance, here's a cultivation facility that was created that has job opportunities for people, which is great. So let's not forget the basics. Like that's the thing. Like moments like these, and to Mike's point too, that moments like these are reasons why it's easy for people to say, oh, see, the cannabis is a problem. And especially something unique too, I think, with cannabis, the cannabis industry is that many of these cultivators, you'll find this in the article if you scroll through, it has a survey that was conducted that said a lot of people who work within these spaces also they use cannabis. So it's not the fact that cannabis is what did it, but it is something that's unique to cannabis workers where they're also utilizing the product itself. So that could be a factor. That could be a factor that has to have like another layer of protection. Not to say cannabis is evil, but it's just that I think that we have to make sure that we are taking the necessary precautions to keep people safe. Like this is a cool industry. First off, hands down, it's a cool industry. It's a cool product, and when I say cool, it's just because it's so multifaceted and has so many great things for people to enjoy and to reap benefits from. It is such an awesome industry. We cannot skip the basics on that. Let's see what else Mike has to say. Mike says that's the best thing about regulation. I supported that. I supported it because I wanted clean, good cannabis. Amen to that. But at what cost? I can't drive. I can't bring my kid to hockey without anyone judging me. That's a good conversation too, because the whole idea about whether or not something is, that whole what is it, inhibiting you, and like, can you drive, can you still function behind a vehicle, like these are conversations that are still happening. And I do agree, like the stigma, the judging element is something that I'm just, I shouldn't say this because I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm just so surprised a lot of times at how judgy people can be, considering that some of the people judging also smoke. So it's just, that's a conversation for another day, but good point, Mike. We've got Nancy. Nancy, I'm not going to say your last name because I do not want to mess that up, because it seems like it's a beautiful last name. But what up? Thank you for joining. So I wanted to make sure I kicked that information to you all. Make sure that you read that up. This is, read into this. This is something that is absolutely, it's something for us to look at and to really understand, like, because the next the next little article here, I'm going to Vermont. I know you guys are like, we don't live in Vermont. What's your obsession with Vermont? Well, they just kind of got into the game, and I'm curious to see how they're going to do their thing. But my point being that the cannabis industry is providing a lot of opportunities that people are taking advantage of, as they rightfully should be. So, look, Nancy calling me out. She said, don't be scared of the last name. Let's see. Gochikoa. First off, that sounds cool as heck. So, all right. But you let me know in the chat if I said it correctly. And thanks for giving me the space to attempt. I appreciate it, Nancy. But the cannabis industry is bringing a lot of opportunities in a lot of different ways. Oh, I was right. What? Hold on 1 second. W on the board for VP for saying the last name correct. Boy, stop playing with me. Let's go. All right. That's perfect. That's perfect. All right, I'll stay focused, I promise. The cannabis industry is bringing so many other opportunities, right? And we're already seeing that. We see that in other places, but Vermont, it's been legal just for like a couple of, few months or whatever it may be, and not even a few months. And already it's spurring, as the headline says, spurring ancillary business growth. Now, in this particular article, let me go ahead and pop that in for y'all. Y'all can read along. Don't worry, I won't read this thing out to you. Okay. But I can always count on Ina to give thank you for the win. I gotta get a little soundboard in here for this. What is really cool about this is that Vermont just got things kicking. One thing I loved in here, it says, yeah, been operating for 1 month, and regulators have so far approved more than a dozen retail licenses. All right. And this marketplace is growing. This particular article talks about storage of the product, right? So this is what I like in the cannabis industry too. And bear with me, because I come from, I had in another life, was on the radio and experienced a lot of just moments with artists and different, like, especially within hip hop, right? This is how I view cannabis very similarly. We can't all be the rapper, y'all. We're not all meant to be the rapper. Somebody got to be the manager, the photographer, the videographer, the PR person, the concert manager, the road manager. There are so many things that make up the success of like the music industry, right? But a lot of times, just the person who's in the forefront is the person that has the star power. I see that same thing with cannabis a lot of times. It feels like people are just, they'll gravitate to one thing and say, yeah, I'm going to be the best grower ever. And that's dope. I'm with you on being the best grower. However, sometimes, like, think outside of the box, because in order for us to have longevity within legalization, in order for us to have longevity and to make those arguments about booming economy, making jobs for people, there are so many different ways that we can help this process along. There's so many ways. If you know that you are fire with the logistics, like, that you can make things go from point A to point B, see how you can maneuver that into a business that targets cannabis businesses. These are things that we have to think outside of the box a lot of time, and not do the things that just feel so, that may sound sexy or may sound like Oh yeah, that was I'm taking it back to hip hop because I like hip hop a lot. So that's just me. Vibe with me if you're on that same platitude. But it is something that says I'm not just going to have cannabis just because it was in a music video, right? How did that cannabis get into that music video? Who gave that cannabis there? Like who was in charge of making sure it was grown just right? Who's in charge of making sure it was delivered to where it needed to be? Like we have to think a little bit more outside of the box about how we can help further this industry. And I think that the reason why this stuff is important is because, especially living in a state where it's not legal, within South Carolina, coming with plans, at least trying to build out a plan about how people can benefit from this and how truly the state can benefit from this will be very important for us. So it's important for us to look at states like a Vermont that just got things on and popping, or you see the things happening in New York. New York just peeled back their requirements on what is it on like fungus and mold and like what how much. This is wild, y'all. I didn't add this story in, but you got to check this out. You just got to look up and see how recently New York has paused pretty much like the requirement in terms of testing flour for like certain molds and things like that. Like it's still something that will need to happen, but because they're trying to push this thing out by like the end of the year and get things popping, they've got different like deadlines about when you have to start showing records of like you did certain amount of testing. Y'all, this stuff is important. Like who's going to be the testers? Like who's going to be the facilities that are going to be able to do that and have that bandwidth to make sure these things happen? Like these are important things because that affects you as a consumer and what you decide to light up every day, right? Like the quality of your product is definitely going to be dependent upon how beautiful of an ecosystem we have within the cannabis space. So check that out when you can. It's a really cool article, especially about that how this particular business was able to, find a niche, whatever, find a spot and secure it and say, hey, you're going to need a place to store all those pounds that you're now going to be bringing in, or all those pounds that you need, and you're going to need it to be in a safe space. And you have to be able to assure that quality control. So we got a couple of comments here. Here we go. Mike, I'm liking Mike's energy out here. I love the chat on these things. Thank you so much, and shout out to the Instagram world. What's up, y'all? Boy, thank you for being here. So you have to allow to grow with those storefront legalizations. Ooh, now that's definitely interesting. Now, are you saying allowing the storefronts to grow within the store, like an indoor grow, or are you talking about vertical integration? That's another one that's pretty that's something that we also should think about too when it comes to legalization, because like New York and a lot of other places, New York is like, we're not allowing vertical integration. So that's that's another story. Joey, got to get in where you fit in. I believe that. I really do. You have to see what works best. You have to be able to think outside the box, and you got to maintain a standard. You know what I'm saying? Like you are giving people a product. You have to be able to do this. You have to be able to have that quality control. You have to be allowed to grow your own. Okay, growing your own. I think that should also be within legalization. People should be able to grow their own. Does that mean that everyone who grows should be able to sell? I think I have a different opinion on that because let's be honest. Are you are is everyone really going to be capable of growing a really excellent product? But that's a conversation for another day. But the freedom to do so, I'm rocking with it. Nancy hit us with the yep. We got what else? Yep, Mike, quality control for sure. No, everyone allowed to grow their own like they can tomatoes. Right, right. Absolutely. If you want to have your own little, little grow or whatever, how you have the little probably wouldn't happen with cannabis, but like, how you have your little basil, you have your little oregano, you have all that ready right for the picking right there for you. Imagine if you had like a little paquito plant there. Personal growing for sure, for sure. I think in 10 years, most people will own a microscope, like a micro grow or something of that nature. I think people are becoming smarter. Word. I think so too, and I think that people are looking for those ways, especially kind of on that independent level of how they can further their experience within cannabis. So here's another one too. Last one on Vermont. I know you guys are like, what the heck with Vermont? But I'm fascinated with these guys right now. I'm fascinated what they got going on. Check out this article right here. Another ancillary opportunity right now for within the cannabis industry, education. Vermont colleges growing cannabis education programs. Now, what's so wild about this? Not really wild, but probably an extreme choice of words, but they had started this program already. These cannabis programs already, like this was not new. This did not just occur just because cannabis was legal. This is something that was already happening. And matter of fact, I kind of want to play this for y'all, so that you can get a little taste of what's going on. But we'll probably say that for a different day. But there is this program. MVU, Castleton, and Vermont Technical College offer a 12 credit cannabis studies program, and it's been around since 2019. So they were already in that space of prepping for legalization. That's valuable. I think that's really valuable. I think that it's something that, there's going to be some people who are like, I don't need to go to a class setting for, to learn everything about cannabis, but you have to admit that's a pretty rad idea, right? For people who can really absorb information in that way, this is pretty rad to be able to have that kind of opportunity to really deep dive into the industry on this kind of level. um Especially considering that, like, I can remember in my classrooms them teaching me to not even touch marijuana. So here's a class all about it. So that's pretty interesting. Here we go. Here's another line that I liked from here. Dr. Lamy says the state has contacted the college to tell them they'll be encouraging business owners to participate in courses to help learn more skills, and the college is expecting some applicants to sign up soon. Um, I was also so I recently was talking to a salesperson who was trying to sell their product to me, and they were talking about, I asked them a very blunt question about, pun intended, I guess, a blunt question about why they chose the certain cannabinoid makeup of their vape cartridge. And I was asking very specific questions. And the reason being, and I told this salesperson, was that education is a very big part of the cannabis industry right now. If you own a shop, education is valuable, especially in places like South Carolina, where there's not a lot of knowledge on the cannabis industry. There's a lot of people who are curious, or there's a lot of people that aren't comfortable with coming forward with all the information that they know about cannabis, or just kind of, expounding on the interest that they have for cannabis. But this right here, educating people, is so valuable because of the unregulated market that we are in. When people come to me and they're asking questions about cannabis, it would be a good thing for me to be able to answer the questions as best as I can, which means that I have to question the people that are selling the product. Education is key. Whether you do it in a college course or whether you do it on your own kind of research, cross referencing, doing some really good, solid research, and asking questions. That's important. I wanted to make sure that I touched on this today because all of these aspects make up the cannabis industry, y'all. All of these things make up the cannabis industry. So think about that and feel empowered about that the next time lawmakers are saying that recreational marijuana is going to be the end of us and it's bad and it just isn't the way, and medical's okay, but we're still going to put a ton of restrictions on them. We have to be empowered with the knowledge and the truth behind these things, because it's not just so simple just to say, oh well, it's bad for us. What are we teaching people when we say recreational marijuana? No, there is a whole industry around this, and the industry is not just made of growing the product. There are other elements to this. I think there's a misconception that every single person that's going to be in the cannabis industry is a cannabis user. Not the case. This is America. Are you kidding me? Like, there's going to be plenty of people who may not be like utilizing cannabis every single day. They may not be daily users or something. There's a spectrum here of cannabis users, and they all can contribute to the industry. And even people who may not use it, if they have a respect for it, like, they can still assist as well. There's just a lot of elements there. I like touching on the things that may not feel directly like it would be related to cannabis, and yet it is. Okay, cool. Now that we've gotten the news, what I would like to do today is kind of show you what I've been doing, or not what I've been doing. What am I talking about? What I've been listening to here lately, which is the gubernatorial debate. Hold on, I got a couple of comments here while I figure this next part out. Here we go. Boom, bim. So I got a couple of comments up on the board. Hold on, you guys. Let me make sure I share a screen. We're flying solo today, baby. Making it happen. It's definitely giving me vibes of like back in the day broadcasting. Okay, here we go. So we'll get into this in just a second. But first, I got a couple of comments. We got a little dancing. Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it. Shout out to the Instagram chat. What's up, Bree? I see you in there. People will be more health conscious like they are with drinks now too. Oh, that's a good point. Like, I mean, the cannabis industry is not going to be immune to those kinds of things, right? Like, it's something that can absolutely be used. And you got the recreational element of it. I could totally see it taking that. Like, people are being very conscious about it. I know that I am. I'm probably the least communal. Look, some of you are going to be like, what the heck, VP? But I'm serious. I'm probably like the least communal smoker ever. Like, I enjoy hemp flower, but I do not like sharing. Like, that's my health conscious arena. Like, I have a dry herb vaporizer. I do not like to share. And that's just me. I've never liked to share. I don't like to share, but I believe in the product. And that's what's important. Like, that's me being health conscious. That's me being picky about that. So, save your snickering. Yes. And training is so important, so valuable. Every shop should sell microscopes too. Ooh, Mike is trying to get up in there. Right on, chick. That's what I'm talking about. They sell pipes with no microscopes. That's an interesting point right there. Jobs for sure. You treat cannabis as if it's a food product, not a drug. Because come on now, health supplements. But once again, let's go. America needs this so bad. And that's a great segue, Mike, into what America needs. And even more specifically, what do American South Carolinians need? I guess that doesn't make sense, but what do South Carolinians need? Well, the gubernatorial debate was last week. Let me make sure that the sound. Okay, y'all do me a favor and make sure that, let me know if you can hear
Congressman,
this.
Many in law enforcement do not want to legalize.
Did y'all hear that? Got to do a little check. Make sure y'all heard that. Let me know if y'all heard that little audio, if we need to turn it up or not. What I'm going to play here is the marijuana portion. Okay, as you can see, the debate itself was like a year long, an hour long. Dear God, an hour long. So we're gonna do a little reaction video here. I'm gonna play some things. I'm gonna stop when I need to stop. So I'm not gonna play the thing all the way through and then talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it in real time, right? And shout out to all of you that are watching. If you want to see what I'm talking about, go on to YouTube to SC NORML, South Carolina NORML, and follow along there. All right, here we go. So
marijuana.
You've got Henry McMaster.
100, maybe less of these.
There he is.
And he wants to.
Hold on 1 second. Here we go. I was just there.
I vote on a bill.
Dear God. There we go.
Ban marijuana, even for medical use.
100, maybe less.
All right, just bear with me.
Officers, trained armed police officers in the schools all day, every day. Now we're approaching 1,000, and we're going to have them in every school
to
make those children safe.
Okay.
Andy, I'm sorry, you can't rebuttal, Congressman. We talked about this.
Oh my God, that was so funny. There's so many rebuttaling of rebuttals.
Congressman, many in law enforcement.
Let me know if y'all can't hear this.
Legalize marijuana, even for medical use. You've discussed, of course, one of your campaign issues is legalizing marijuana. How do you convince law enforcement, lawmakers who would need to change the law, as well as their constituents who have doubts about this? How would you convince them that this is the right thing to do?
Okay, before we even get any further into this question right here, what's hilarious to me is that we've already started this off with the fact that people who are not lawmakers, right? Like that law enforcement is the question is about law enforcement, like convincing law enforcement that we should make something legal, which is pretty interesting, is it not? Like us having to convince law enforcement to make something legal, shouldn't we be trying to convince our politicians to make something legal? And just like he says in the question, he's like, oh, they're constituents. And it's like, what? Like, why are we trying to, what about the people? What about what the people want? You know, like, wow. I'm sorry. We didn't even get into the debate yet. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Hold on, Mike. I'm on the train too. I got to shut up too so y'all can hear this. Mike says, legalizing it absolutely made my life so much better. There are a few things that could change about it. I wouldn't think what's good for America unless I know for certain. Okay, I'll shut up now. I feel you, Mike. All right, here we go. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna play this thing. Let me know if there's a drop in audio or anything. And shout out to the Instagram feed. Y'all join us on YouTube so you can see the debate. Here we go.
Yeah, great question. And a few things. First and foremost, I vote on a bill that would ban chokeholds and ban no-knock warrants. Some of the things that Governor McMaster, I believe, supported. And he wants to bring up Nancy Pelosi. The fact is that I took over 900 votes while I was in Congress. And around 8% of those votes were with Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
I was ranked one of the most independent and one of the most bipartisan members of Congress. And that's exactly the kind of governor that I'm going to be. Independent and thinking for himself. I've talked to a lot of police officers who do want to legalize marijuana. And I've talked to a lot of veterans as well, folks. And call me old-fashioned, but I believe that if you put it all on the line to serve our country, and many of them come home from overseas with wounds that we can't always see, PTSD or otherwise. And many have told me that they need access to marijuana to be able to sleep at night. And these individuals went to Governor McMaster and asked him and begged him and pleaded with him to legalize medical marijuana so that they could get the medical treatment that they deserve. Governor McMaster turned his back on our veterans.
Okay, so what's interesting about this is I do not remember if this was like an article or something about I don't know if this ever made it into the news about the veterans going to McMaster, but I do remember talking to someone who was a part of a group that went up, especially during like before the medical marijuana bill was being debated, and they went up to the state house. It was a group of veterans, and they were speaking, lobbying, things of that nature. I wonder if that's the group that he's talking about. Don't know, but it's the truth. And also, yes, on Instagram, the only way you're going to be able to hear the debate is by going to our YouTube channel. So if you go to our YouTube channel, South Carolina NORML, you'll be able to hear it there. I can't drop a link right now because I'm multitasking, but you can find us there. All right, here we go. Let's keep it going.
So they called me.
Okay.
And I've been respecting them and advocating that they have the medical freedom that they deserve, because that's what they get whenever they serve our country with honor.
Okay.
Governor McMaster, where do you stand on legal?
Okay, so I do appreciate the nod to the vets. And then he mentions about the police. I wish that there was more that was said. I know there's a short amount of time that they can speak, but I wish there were a couple of other notes in there because there's just so much. But I guess in that moment, it's kind of hard to choose exactly what you want to do or maybe what you think may be the most impactful. But I do appreciate from this stance from Cunningham that it's not just about medical, that it's also about recreational, which is, another conversation that we can have, because I'm always in the mindset of what's the difference really between medical and recreational? It's the same plant. Like, what are we doing here? If you're smoking something recreationally, do you all of a sudden just stop experiencing the medical benefits of the plant of cannabis? The answer is no. But I digress, but I'm glad that he didn't make that kind of separation. So let's see what McMaster has to say about this. Once again, y'all let me know about audio on the YouTube side and Facebook Live. Here we go.
Legalizing
How about
marijuana.
All right,
rebuttal?
McMaster.
This is just a question to you.
This is still the same.
Okay.
This is the same question to you, Governor. But where do you stand on legalizing marijuana? Are there any instances where you see it could be available to South Carolinians?
Well, legalizing recreational marijuana is one.
Okay, before we get into this now, McMaster, if you go to NORML's Smoke the Vote page, you'll see some quotes from McMaster. And over the years now, and even throughout his career as a politician, there have been plenty of times where McMaster has been like, it's a no-go on marijuana, on legalizing anything. And he's also been like, you know, if something gets to my desk, I'm gonna veto it. Like, there's quotes about this. Like, these are things. So let's see how he answers this question. Here we go.
Thing. Medical marijuana, that's something else. Now, I presided over the Senate for 2 years, as you know, before I moved from lieutenant.
Time out, y'all. We gotta go back on that because we gotta drop the we gotta just please entertain me for a second. Bear with me because did I just hear what I just heard? Here we go.
Rebuttal?
This is just a question to you.
This is still the same.
Okay.
This is the same question to you, Governor. But where do you stand on legalizing marijuana? Are there any instances where you see it could be available to South Carolinians?
Well, legalizing recreational marijuana is one thing. Medical marijuana, that's something else. Now, I presided over the Senate for.
Okay. So recreational. So off rip, he's letting us know. Well, kind of in a way, but he's like, he clearly has a distinction between the two. Doesn't seem like he's rocking with recreational. Okay, but let's not assume. Let's just hear it.
2 years, as you know, before I moved from lieutenant governor to governor. And I think just about every day, Tom Davis, senator from Beaufort, had someone there and he was making the case for medical marijuana. That is a very interesting proposition. Now, law enforcement is foursquare opposed to it, but there may be some movement there because there are people that cannot get relief anywhere else. So that's a completely different animal.
Hold on. Okay, so and if you in the chat, please let me know how you feeling about this so far, because this is, my favorite word is interesting. It is very interesting that there is such a separate one where he acknowledges the fact that law enforcement doesn't want it legalized, and yet still has, like, it seems like there's this support or this acknowledgement that marijuana can be helpful for people who need it the most. Scott Weldon, we know that guy, and that's a great picture, by the way. McMaster still wants rec consumers in prison. I mean, that seems pretty clear to me. It's also pretty interesting, like, how do you draw the line of, like, that guy's using it for medical purposes, that gal's using it for recreational purposes? Like, are we saying that the people that would be taking the medical marijuana also would not be, like, enjoying it? I just don't understand. Okay, here we go. Mike says, with cannabis, you're always just one step away if you feel the need to quit. With alcohol, you're 12 steps away. Mike is out here spitting them gems. Joey, all cannabis consumption is medical. Come on. Whether for Crohn's disease or migraines, or to prevent suppressed seizures, to help with stress, to be something that you enjoy. That's medicinal as well, to just enjoy something. This is medicinal. Exactly. All cannabis consumption is medical. How are we still trying to split it up and talk about, like, oh, you're this is recreational. Now you've crossed the line from, like, Does your head not hurting and you're smoking? This must be recreational now. What are you talking about? Oh man. Okay, here we go. Politics, am I right?
From recreational marijuana.
I'm
And
gonna
I
rewind
look
it
at
back just a
and
little
he
bit,
was
y'all.
making the case for
Talking
medical marijuana.
Tom Davis.
That is a very interesting proposition. Now, law enforcement is foursquare opposed to it, but there may be some movement there because there are people that cannot get relief anywhere else.
Okay, so saying that there may be some movement there, and yes, I'm stopping a lot with McMaster, especially because he is the governor that was in place when we were over here talking about medical marijuana being passed in South Carolina. So I'm interested to see, like, how are you feeling? Like, what are you? He's hesitating a lot, which is not a good sign to me. Like to say that there may be some movement there, I don't think that's good enough for the people of South Carolina right now. The people of South Carolina have already been through this first kind of like, this first kind of rigmarole or something. Y'all can use that word. Don't worry, I didn't make it up. Um, they've already been through this when it comes to the first kind of bout of the medical marijuana bill. I think that South Carolinians want to know what's going to happen with this thing. Like, what's going to happen with this thing? Is it going to be revamped? That's a question I want to know. It's not like we haven't had something on the floor. We've had something on the floor. We need to revisit it again. It got kicked out because of a technicality. We want to know what's happening with that. When we say that there may be some movement, I just don't think that that's good enough.
So that's a completely different animal from recreational marijuana. And I look at it, what do you want to teach the children? How do we want to teach? Do you want to teach them that recreational marijuana is great, just go out and smoke a joint, or that voting on...
What do we want to teach the children? What do we want to teach the children? I'm a mother. I'll tell you what I want to teach my kid. The truth is what I would like to teach my child as best as I can. Responsibility, accountability. That's something I would like to teach my child. And I don't think that legalizing marijuana is going to do the opposite of that. Real quick to the comments, because we got some things. Hot take. Oh, Joey said, McMaster's a low-key racist. I mean, I'm reading the opinions of the folks in our chat. I'll keep it going. I don't have Scott here to tell me what I can and cannot say. 8 years of stalling is enough. I agree with you. Prohibition is founded in racism. Truth. Richard Nixon, prejudice against hippies and African Americans, pretty much all brown people in general, like, the Hispanic culture for sure. Oh man, I gotta keep. Every week I'm like, there's this book I'm reading, and I really should show y'all what it is. It talks about that in a great way. If he drinks or has drank, he's done drugs himself. Cannabis isn't a drug. Speak to the people, Mike. Alcohol and drugs. Alcohol is a drug. So when we say, what are we going to teach our children? Well, we teach our children all things about drinking, about what it means to drink, right? Or like, we would hope that we are teaching responsibility. We tell people to be responsible. Don't drink and drive. Be responsible. Take the keys from someone if they've drank too much. We teach responsibility and accountability. We do the same thing with this right here. We have products that are legal right now that have been proven to kill people. Alcohol and tobacco has this capacity. What are we talking about? Like, what are we teaching our children? Like, supporting prohibition is supporting racism or prejudice. I am rocking with that. And amen to Ina for sure. Just do it. Scott Weldon with the simple yet effective line. Just do it. Joey, legalized cannabis is about freedom, personal responsibility, and individual freedom. Facts about that, man. All right, let's keep it going.
Sports contests and horse racing.
Shout out to the Instagram chat.
I think we got to
join us
serious.
On YouTube so you can hear the other side of this.
Yeah, but sport, you can have a lot of freedom without having an organized sports betting thing in South Carolina. I mean, that's gambling. A lot of people are opposed to it. And recreational marijuana, those are not the answers to the problems in South Carolina. Far from it. And I would just, on that issue, I would echo Congressman Clyburn when he said, and I quote, "You need to grow up, Joe."
All right. So, question not answered. Okay. By the way, I mean, this was also like a rebuttal, but still, like, no. Recreational, being another animal, is not. Let me tell you what wasn't going to help solve South Carolina either. That medical marijuana bill that we had, which had all kinds of restrictions, touted as the most restrictive medical marijuana bill. Did not include flower, did not include access for people who may need it, not accessible, and not well thought through, not advantageous to South Carolinians across the board. Having only certain places where people can come and access this medical marijuana does not help people in rural areas. It doesn't help people in that way. So that also was not helping South Carolina. And yet medical marijuana is being touted as though it is superior to recreational. And then when you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, well, what's the difference between medical and what's the difference between medical marijuana and recreational? A card? A medical card? No, because guess what? When we look in places like Florida, right, where they've had medical for a hot little minute, and what are those companies saying? Hey, can we get some recreational? Well, at least it was True Leaf that was saying that. But clearly, the market is saying something else. It's not just about these medical advantages. Like, why not give something to everyone that can be utilized both recreationally and medicinally at the same dang time? At the same time. Why is that so hard? Is it because we have a structure within South Carolina, within America, that puts an emphasis on selling you things that are supposed to be helpful for you, an emphasis on prescription drugs, an emphasis on accessibility to said prescription drugs? We're talking about medical marijuana. Well, the FDA has already synthesized medical or marijuana, right? There's already FDA drugs. We know this because we talked about this last week, right? So what are we talking about? There has to be something more here. We have to dig more, and we need better answers. And I just, and this is something for both the candidates here. It's also like, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I'm tired of like the name calling for each of them. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about how much you don't like the other person. I want answers to questions. Aren't y'all tired of not having answers to questions? Aren't we tired of like not having answers to questions? These are this is our lives that we're talking about, and things that can help people in the long run. Answers, please. Not jabs, answers.
Congressman Rebuttal.
Look, I'm not going to apologize for fighting for more freedom, especially for our veterans that Governor McMaster has slammed the door on. Because, Governor, I served on the Veterans Affairs Committee. I've heard countless stories. The Marine who lost a limb from a roadside bomb and told me that every night when he laid his head down on his pillow, he had flashbacks of that bomb and was unable to go to sleep. And the only thing that allowed him to go to sleep at night was using marijuana.
Okay. There's not much time, so I'm going to try to stop stopping and going. But let's think about this for a second. First off, yes, I understand the direction when it comes to vets. My whole family has been in the military or is currently in the military. I'm the only one who didn't go, but I have extreme respect for the military. I have friends who are vets who are on prescription medication that want. What's up, Mike, in the IG chat? What's good? Thanks for checking in. I have friends who who want to utilize something that's they feel is more useful for them. And I like this angle, and I appreciate this angle. Now I'm going to tell you guys, and this is coming from VP, something that's very important to me is also talking about everyday citizens who may not be vets, who can still benefit from recreational cannabis. Why isn't it enough just to think about the fact that people can be helped? If we just sit down and put our heads together and craft a good blueprint and craft a good means of helping people, that this is something that can help people all over the place, including our vets who absolutely deserve to have the help that they need, especially with the sacrifices that they've given for our country. It's important. It's important. Let's let Cunningham finish. Here we go.
I think he deserves that freedom. And a lot of veterans who are scared of becoming addicted to opioids, why can't we give them that medical freedom? Now, 4 years ago, Governor McMaster stood on the stage with James Smith saying he was against medical marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I support Senator Tom Davis' bill. I think we can do that. That's why 90% of Americans support it as well. But we have career politicians that have become so disconnected from where the rest of the country and where the rest of the state is. I want to move our state forward and take it into the future and out of the past.
Thank you, Congressman. Andy has a question to you, Governor.
Can I rebut that?
No,
Okay, and then they
rebutting
finish right
rebuttals
here.
again.
And the next one, you guys check that out when you have the time. Let me go ahead and pop over, because speaking of time, I'm only at 3 minutes. But that right there was a snippet, and I know that I started getting up in there. Someone in my Instagram chat just said VP for 2028. I don't know, but I will still be here talking and hopefully fighting the good fight. Listen, y'all, when it comes to this right here, though I'm flattered. Thank you, Bree. When it comes to legalizing, when it comes to the medical bill, right? This is something that, I have my own personal opinions about the medical bill, and we can chop it up offline about those kinds of things. But one thing I will say is that we have an opportunity now to really voice our opinion about how we think that medical marijuana bill should be structured. And I've been able to talk to people all the way from people who are suffering from Crohn's disease, where marijuana is the only thing that helps them, to people who are shop owners or that have customers that are looking for something new to try or to have fun with. Both of these things exist simultaneously. Why was that hard to believe? Why is that hard to grasp? And furthermore, there are special groups that need this, but we can make an argument that there's a wide variety of people who need this. And legalizing recreationally is not going to diminish our society. It's not going to do that. We have whole celebrations around alcohol. Celebrations. We have advertisements all about alcohol. I drink alcohol, but we're entrusted to do so responsibly and put in the appropriate checks and balances so that we can do these things responsibly. So I wanted to share that with you all. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all for rocking with us. I'm going to try to say these things really fast because I got 60 seconds. But let me see. Boop, boop, bump, bam. We've got a 2023 membership drive starting soon. Charleston Pride Festival, Saturday, November 12th at the Refinery. Make sure you guys come and check us out there. If you'd like to help us, we are always looking for volunteers, and it's going to be a really great time. Lobby Day in Columbia will be Wednesday, January 25th. I need y'all to show up. And if you can't show up, I need you to tell me a story or some grievances or whatever it may be, so I can collect those things and that we can tell the people who need to be told. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate you for being here. Follow us on Instagram at SCNormal. You can follow me at Vaughn Postema on Instagram. I appreciate your help. If you want to be a member, hit us up. If you want to be on the board, hit us up, okay? Because looking for board members, we cannot do this on our own. We need help. We need people like you who care to come through and be there to help us champion this and make sure that we have excellent representation for as many people as we can who deserve to be seen in all of this. My last little note is that No one mentioned anything about people who are being imprisoned for this, and what we could do for them. Like, that's a strong factor, but is South Carolina ready for that? We don't know. Well, it's 8 o'clock on the dot. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate you. I'm dropping things. I appreciate you so much. Please have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.